So you wanted us to have a quick chat about the Chris Volpe interview, how we felt after everything, and also have it kind of like freshly off the bat of everything, so that it's more of our, thoughts in the moment as opposed to thoughts 2 or 3 months later down the road.
Yeah, exactly. I thought it was interesting. I thought it was nice having him on, hearing the thoughts of someone running for office. I think it was very funny. I definitely felt like the odd man out in the conversation as the more centrist, I think, between the three of us there. Mm-hmm. But it was interesting, I think, experiencing that pitch from someone who feels a bit more in the center of things.
Okay.
I felt like he handled himself pretty well, but I'm curious to hear from you if you thought he presented your side well or not.
So a couple of things. To an extent,
obviously.
I'd say a couple of things. For one, there were two pits. One was that the definitions for certain labels, he did get some of those wrong during the conversation, but at the same time, he's also was very, very firm about him not being a labels person. This is not a thing that he wants to pitch tent on. So I'm just like, okay, trans is a big thing, with non-binary being a thing that's under that umbrella. They aren't different. I remember making that mistake myself, but to your point, it's easier to do allyship if you just go and brush that under the rug and say, you know what? You're here for the same rights that I'm here for. I don't fucking care about that particular thing. Or the government seizure of assets, saying that's more socialistic. I'm like, that's not. I don't want to pop in and say, well, that's not really what a bottom-up worker grab of resources looks like, but I understand what you're trying to communicate. It's using a boogeyman word for the right against the right, and I understand that's what you're going for. So like the label thing, my brain got caught on it, but my brain got caught on it because they're things that are more in my wheel space, not because there's any actual like salient criticism to be had there. But I will say one thing that I was very happy about, like insanely happy about. I've done interviews with politicians before. I've gone to my local, I went down to the local Democrat office over in, where was it? A county over from where I am. My brain is blanking on which one it is. But when I talked to the politicians over there, and the ones that have run against Marjorie Taylor Greene, because I've talked to Sean, I've talked to Marcus Flowers when he was running against her. When I've had these conversations, every single time there is a politician speak, where they're able to give you 10% of an idea and then wrap that around flowery language so that you feel like you've gotten 100% of an idea. And I have routinely found that in almost every politician or hopeful that I've talked to, and I didn't get that with Chris. And that is something that I appreciated. He felt like talking to a real person, not a Mass Effect dialogue tree of 20 different scripts.
Yeah, he felt very genuine, and on top of that, I think that came across, like, some of the times when he was talking, like, it's clear to me as a teacher he cares about education, and he would talk about it, and I'd be like, okay, this guy has some good ideas in this realm of like what we should be doing. But then when I feel like it got to healthcare and some other affordability things, I felt like he was super passionate, and I felt like I felt that a lot more with those areas. And that was like, because I feel like with politicians, much to your point, you don't see that passion as much, and so I think it was interesting to hear that side of him, at least.
Yeah, you're used to seeing somebody go, well, here's my platform and here's what we're offering, and he's more in the realm of, I'm tired of that. I don't care. Get the thing done that people need, and if you can't do that, have a damn fucking good reason as to why. That was a lot of the impression that I got there, and that does appeal to me, because I did mention that, like, my brain gets very fallacy poisoned, where it goes, well, technically that's the wrong way to think on things. So I'm just like, the Democrats do an appeal to tradition that I find problematic and fallacious a lot, and seeing somebody who very vocally is willing to go, and also fuck that, okay, that's great. I'm happy about that.
Yeah, he definitely felt like, I think, of the new generation of Democrats to me a bit more, where it's much more this thing where it's like, it's not even
Democrats.
To that extent, sure, but I more even meant this idea of like the outcomes suddenly become a lot more important than even the like how you achieve the outcomes. Like you're willing to compromise on the method in which some of those things are achieved, but you're not necessarily willing to compromise on the outcomes. And I think that's when we get more people like that in power, that's going to be a very interesting period of politics where we're seeing like goals being achieved, but then the methods become the thing that people are fighting over. That I think is going to be an interesting time for sure.
Yeah, because right now we have like the Republican Party, who their goals are being achieved, period, and their methods are like both the goals and the methods are an area that the left can attack. But it also feels like trying to hit 10,000 things at once, and your shotgun does not have a big enough spread. Is what we're dealing with right now. I'm trying to think the best way to word this, but it feels like with a lot of Democrat politicians, there is a lot of arguing over minutia. And I am not quite old enough to feel like arguing over minutia is a good waste of time.
Yeah, I think it's something that the old guard, how politics, well, and is still, I was about to say used to be done, but how it's still done, is the minutia is kind of how you would signal to your base that you were fighting for them. Because you sit down with the Republicans and you go, we're passing this bill, whether or not you like it. Okay, let's fight on, is the cap at 10% or 15% or something like that? Like, because that way both sides can walk away saying, I fought for my side.
They did what they were supposed to do.
Exactly. Even though ultimately, like, it didn't, I don't want to say it didn't matter, but it was for show. It was very much like dog and pony. The bigger part was the bill getting passed, period. Kind of like the ACA, the whole thing with like ACA funds can't be used for abortions. Like, I think that was very performative in a sense for those Democrats who just needed to make sure that their constituents felt like they were fighting for them, even though I'm fairly certain that was never in the bill to begin with. It was just something that they were like, I want this not enumerated, but like spelled out so that I can say I did this for my side. When again, the thing you did for your side was the ACA, but they have to fight on that minutia to make it look like they're doing something. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a very, very frustrating thing because as of right now, what we are seeing is the Republican Party. Now, obviously, not during the shutdown, because during the shutdown, we're seeing a lot of the minutia conversation. We're seeing a lot of the fracturing of the party. How long that's going to last, I don't know, because this is not the first time we've seen the GOP is fracturing.jpg.
Sure,
but my issue is that when I look at the Republican Party, I see a party that has a spelled out set of goals. They know who they want to attack. They know how they want to attack them, and they know who they're trying to support. They have a media infrastructure under them that is bolstering that. And I see their politicians, generally speaking, getting that shit done. And when they argue about anything between themselves, it's mostly about how far they are willing to go, but never about what direction they're willing to go in. The direction's always very, very consistent. Whereas on the Democratic side, I see a lot of, let's argue how much we have to give the other side when we do this. I don't see that same capitulation on the other side. And maybe that's my blind eyes, because there is a chance that there's things that I'm simply missing there. But a frustration with me is that we don't get Democrats doing that. And I don't know. I'm of the opinion that maybe not if it's Chris, but if we get more people like Chris entering the seats in the primaries, that's just a good thing, personally.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, like, to your point about the Republicans, I think the biggest thing right now is the Republicans do have a leader, and that leader is Trump.
Yes.
Like, my conspiracy theory is that Johnson would actually like to push back on Trump more on a couple of things, not everything, don't get me wrong, but that because his majority in the House is so small, he kind of has to do whatever Trump can say, because Trump can say, don't pass this legislation, and it won't get passed. And even because I remember when they were trying to pass the budget the last time, Johnson gave a press conference where he was like, I told Trump to stand down. I told him, don't worry, we'll handle it. And then suddenly he couldn't get the votes, and Trump's like inviting people into his office and giving them like signed merch and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, you still had to go back to Trump to get your legislation passed. And I think for me, I think the good part about running people like this in the primary is whoever is going to be the next leader of the party is probably going to be a dark horse. I highly doubt it's going to be some super establishment person that just gets the torch handed to them, because that's what we saw happen on the Republican side of things. So I'm very interested to see how Chris does in the primary. And I'll certainly, I mean, I can't vote, but I'll certainly be supporting him to a certain extent. But like, yeah, I'm really curious to see what kind of effect people like him running will have on whatever the next leader that emerges is going to be, because I have to imagine they're going to be of that side of the party, less so than like the Schumer, Pelosi kind of old guard side.
Yeah, so like, I know that we have not you and I, but like, you know, people in general in politics spaces, we have conversations about how do you shift an Overton window? How do you successfully move that window away? I think for from the ground up, getting more people like Chris Volpe to just run, to just go into the primaries and show that there is resistance from within the, you know, the broader left area that can be considered part of the Democratic Party. By showing that kind of resistance from the bottom up, you can eventually erode some of those more already waning power structures.
Yeah, and I think it's good that he's running as a Democrat. And that was definitely something that I wanted to like touch on with him a bit more. Was like the fact. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say that I was also interested hearing that it's literally more expensive to run as an independent. Like it is actually harder to run on a fiscal level.
That didn't surprise me as much, because I think people do forget the DNC and the RNC are private organizations. I don't know if company is the right term. It probably is, but I don't know that for a fact. But it's like they are probably the reason you get that deal is because you have the D next to your name.
Yeah.
And they do that because they want more people to have the D next to their name instead of the I, because that looks better. I do think it looks bad for the Democratic Party that Bernie Sanders is an independent. And they always have to say, Bernie Sanders, an independent who caucuses with the Democrats. I think that looks bad on the party when you have such a big thought leader on their side not being part of their party. And the easiest way to get people in that, get them early, get them with the little stuff, because obviously, you know, that's going to convince people to sign up for very little buy-in.
So I am curious, did you have any areas during the interview where you were, because like I already gave the label kind of mismanaging was one of the ones that that kind of hit me. Were there any parts that hit you where you just kind of like a little bit of a head scratcher at all?
Yeah, there were a couple, but it was mostly like, it was very minute, kind of like policy and business stuff. Like for me, some of the things where he was talking about, specifically, I'm trying to remember what the specific moment was, but there was definitely a moment he was talking about some sort of element of passing legislation. Oh, healthcare. Because that's a big one for me. And he was talking about specifically like, you know, we should get universal over the ACA, because the ACA isn't like good. And I was like, the ACA, I think it is like a fantastic achievement. And I think we do a lot of times sort of undermine the road that it took to get the ACA passed, how difficult that was, and how many like roadblocks we had to overcome, and where we are now that we have that as a stepping stone to move forward from. But it was something that like I didn't want to jump on, because for the most part, it's like, to your point, I agree with the end goal. So I'm not going to sit here and be like, actually, I think the way you're phrasing this is unfair to the Democrats, because that's, you know, that's going to be really cool. But like I did, like, those were the moments that I got stuck on, where these very small kind of policy kind of, I don't even want to say history, but like framing of certain things that I just kind of sat there and was like, all right, okay.
That's fair, because I know that I actually, for my part, like most of my family is very, very conservative. But uniquely, my mom works in insurance. So I get these two sides where I see my family and their friends hate the ACA, like actually hate the ACA, but they're all people who have a decent bit of money. All of them make six-figure salaries and higher. They are all in positions where they are very, very comfortable. Nobody struggles, but they hate the ACA because in their mind, the ACA made their healthcare far less affordable.
Exactly.
And that there's also other factors, like the fact that they are older. And right now, under our current system, the older you get, the more expensive it is to have health insurance because you're more of a liability. Yes. That's a systems problem. But then, when I talked to my mom about it. She's kind of in the middle of those two of like, man, this thing is broken, but it's the only reason my son can have healthcare, which hasn't even meant anything. I was supposed to try to go get like an ADHD diagnosis this year, and we are at November, and that didn't happen. Saki was supposed to have a couple surgeries this year, some of which are for TMI things, but it involves a lot of bleeding that we wish would stop. And we are at November, and none of that has been able to be done. And it's seeing both of those sides of like the people who are criticizing this system the most are the ones who are well-to-do, and the ones who are relying on it and not giving it as much pushback are the ones who need it. That's almost like the system doing kind of what it's supposed to do. I would much rather a world where they didn't have to spend, fucking $1,200 a month on healthcare. That's ludicrous and stupid, and I can't fathom spending that much money. But I recognize that if we were to just throw away the ACA right now, we'd be kind of fooked. Though to be fair, in the conversation, he did mention if we lost the ACA, his response would be to say, okay, instead of clawing that back, let's get single payer. Let's put something better in place. So I feel like maybe even giving a little pushback on the ACA thing may have been appropriate there, only because the phrasing was not that the ACA was bad or good. It was that Republicans want to get rid of it. If they get rid of it, what do we put in its place?
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, as we talked about, I'd never done an interview like this, so I was like very much trying to sit there and be like, all right, just be the good interviewer on this. So, I probably didn't take as many swings perhaps as I could have, but I also like the guy. I like the guy, and I like kind of his messaging, and I didn't want to make too much trouble for him on that respect either. I do think like he did seem very informed to me. There were a lot of ways he'd speak about the healthcare system specifically, like people's experiences with it, and I think also sort of how to balance business interests with citizen interests, I guess you could say. Like that to me felt like an area where he had a real strength and he had a real knowledge base. And so that was some of the things that, for me, to give him credit, I will say, I thought were like very, very strong points for him.
True, but the areas where he was literally speaking from experience,
exactly,
which also makes sense, because one of his criticisms for a lot of the Democrats who are in Congress, and especially his primary opponent, are that, man, what experience at the grocery store do these people actually have? What experience in this field do these people actually have? When you look at me, what experience do I have? Okay, I have to go do the same shit as everybody else in society. There's my experience. Like that seemed very much to be a sticking point for his platform. And I'm okay with that being a sticking point, because from a pragmatic perspective, it works. It worked for Trump. Even though Trump lied about it, it worked for him.
That's true. Yeah. And I think that's what people care about. People care about, like, I have an issue, Washington doesn't care about me. And I do think the message of, I don't just care about you, I know you, is like big. Bernie Sanders did an interview with someone recently. I want to say it was C-SPAN, but it might have been CNBC. And he was like, the guy who was interviewing was him, was like, now you got your start in rural Vermont, and you really made inroads with those people. And Sanders immediately stops him and he goes, I am those people. I come from rural Vermont. I grew up very poor. Like, I didn't make inroads with them. I am those people. And it was like, I do think that is something that gets lost in the sauce a lot. This idea of like, it's about, as a politician, just convincing people, as opposed to necessarily like genuinely having their experiences or genuinely having their backs. And so that was definitely good to hear from him, for sure.
Oh yeah, that is a frustration that I run into a lot. What was it? I forget what the bill was, but I remember hearing my audience mention it in chat. I think it was Thursday, some politician was asked, what do you think the price of this thing is? Some generic good that everybody gets. Milk.
I think it was
milk.
Trump. Yeah, I think it was Trump. Yeah.
It was like, what do you think the price of a gallon of milk is? No, that was from our conversation with Chris when we were there.
Oh, no, that was, you're right, the election night stream. Yeah,
it was like, what do you think a gallon of milk costs? And if people are not giving a number that is like somewhere above or below $3, then they don't go to the fucking grocery store.
Yeah.
That was a conversation that I had with my chat as well, where you can tell somebody's financial situation based off of two things they're doing at the store. Are they looking at the price per ounce of the food they're getting? And if they like hot dogs and bologna, are they getting Bar S? If they're getting the Bar S ones, then you know that either now or at some point in the past, this is a person who has struggled. So their taste either developed or they currently are having to deal with Bar S hot dogs and Bar S bologna, because it's the lowest bottom dollar of both, often far lower than whatever bottom dollar like grocery store brand thing that might exist.
Yeah. I think too, it's like, when you develop these habits quite young, I think too. So I think like it's like, I completely agree with you, but I also do think there are those people at the store buying the expensive stuff who are also struggling, because to them that's all they know. Like my mother's like this, where like, yeah, her whole life, my mother grew up very, very poor, the child of like a social worker who also were like farmers on the side. And she would like, growing up, we had no whole milk in the house. It was all skim. We had no butter. It was all margarine. And it was like, we would always like kind of overspend on like this fancier stuff off the idea of like, well, it's healthier somehow, even if it wasn't. We often joke that growing up, I really liked egg whites, and my mom would never let me eat them because I never wanted to eat the yolk of hard-boiled eggs. And so she would let me eat egg whites because I wasn't getting the protein. When, of course, anyone who knows anything about health can tell you the egg whites are the healthy part. The yolks are the unhealthy part. She should have been shoving egg whites at me. But yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely, you can tell who's been where.
Yes, exactly. Like it's like a Depression era mindset. Yeah.
Yeah. Most of the conversation about that usually ends up being like, what kind of shoes does somebody wear? But I think, but that's more of the like, how do you tell this in a story versus how do you actually analyze this? It felt like there were things with Chris that I could talk about. I'd like to talk more about games industry stuff because like that's where my passion is. I talk about politics because there's people I care about that it affects. I don't talk about politics because it's the thing that I care about the most in the world. What I care about the most in the world is being able to sit down on a Friday night with my friends, cook a really good meal for all of us, and play a couple rounds of whatever game we happen to be in the middle of. Yeah. Like that's the thing that I want to do with the rest of my life, period.
I think that's what everyone wants. I think at the end of the day, it's like people always want more, of course. You know, the moment you fly first class, you want to fly private. But like, I do think that most people would be much happier if it, just like you're saying, they could just have the big meal with the family and friends. They could have that connection, play those games. And I think that's a little bit of what I heard with Chris, which did give me hope to a certain extent there.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of that. Like this is not a politician running as a politician. This is a person running for an office because he needs to. And the absolute nanosecond he doesn't need to anymore, he's going to go do the thing he wants to do again. Yeah. Yeah. Which I definitely appreciated.
Yeah. I was going to say, I set this up because I thought we'd have more to say and more to pick apart, but I really do feel like he gave the answers he wanted to give. I didn't feel like he was necessarily holding anything back or doing that politician speak. So, yeah, I don't know what more I have to add to this thing that I requested we do necessarily.
I mean, I think like we both had our areas where we felt like there was a maybe lacking of nuance is the best way to put it. Sure. And we both voiced that and also came to the same conclusion of like, but we're walking in the same direction. Yeah. It doesn't matter that the guy over here is like technically walking at a different gait than me. We're walking the same way. We're hopefully gonna get to the same destination, and that's kind of where we're at. Hopefully, that's the hope. Yeah, that's the hope. Yeah. That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's kind of the only place to be at these days with how things look. But Tuesday was good. We'll see what comes out of it. But thank you so much for hosting, man. I do appreciate. I know this was like a random ask for someone you'd only talk to one time, but I do appreciate you hosting.
That was
very, very kind of you.
I appreciate you reaching out on it and trusting somebody that you'd only talked to the one time to do it. There's another side to that coin.
You're right. I guess you're right about that. Yeah. Well, it was fun, man. I'm sure we'll talk more soon. But yeah, I'm gonna hop off. I'm gonna eat for the first time today and probably start doing more research for my upcoming video. But just thanks, man.
I'm gonna hop off stream so that I can spend the day that's designated as a date day with me and my partner as an actual date day instead of a work day.
You're oh my god, you're Obama in the was that the first debate with Romney? Right? He was doing it on his anniversary, and they had like a whole. I'm trying to look this up now. They had it anyway. Never mind. You know what? Unimportant. But I just remember Obama and Romney were debating once because that was the first election I could vote in, and so I was watching all the debates. And Obama was like, "I'd like to open by saying thank you, Michelle. This is my anniversary, and she's a wonderful wife." And then for Romney's opening statement, he also was like, I, too, would like to thank Michelle for letting me borrow her husband. I'm sure this isn't how you were planning to spend your anniversary, but it's a great thing you guys have accomplished. It was like a cute little moment back when we had decorum and decency. Yeah. So, yeah, you go have a good date day. I'm going to go have a good lunch. And, take care. Thanks again.
See you. Hey, you made it to the end. I want to give an extra thanks to the patrons who allow me to do this full time. I want to thank Aaron Rail, Astral, Britzkrieg, Jemshin, Poundini, Red Joker, Victoria, Jonas, Craig, Tarika, Fireshard, Smiling GM, John, Dren Hadamada, Creeper, Sagitta, I'm not saying that last part, Valis of Sereth, Ottoman Angel, Rooster Rachel, and Fire Panda, who are all my $20 and up patrons.